HR Hacks and Halos, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on workplace culture, calling out the bad while shining a light on the good. I'm Jivan Dempsey, a HR consultant passionate about transforming the way we work. From confronting toxic bosses to celebrating positive change, this is your space for real talk, actionable insights, and I hope the occasional spark of inspiration. Today, we're tackling a couple of topics that every HR professional and business leader should be caring about. The real value of compliance-based training and, as a woman, how to thrive in male-dominated industries. Joining me today is Bobbie King, CEO of SQEPtech, a company dedicated to redefining talent development in high-risk industries. Bobbi isn't just an expert in competency management, she's a trailblazer. From growing up in communist Romania to building a successful business in the UK, her journey is a testament to resilience, adaptability, and leadership. She shares her thoughts on why compliance isn't enough, how AI is shaping the future of workforce training, and in her view, why that is the key to employee engagement and retention. Bobbi also shares invaluable insights on how she's been able to break barriers as a female leader in a male-dominated field, the power of mentorship, and why organisations need to rethink their approach to competency development. I think this is one conversation you don't want to miss, so let's dive in. Hello and welcome, Bobbie King. It's so lovely to have you here with me. So just from my listener's perspective, Bobbie, you are the CEO of SQEPtech, founded by yourself and your partner, Jonathan Ball. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about SQEPtech and what led you to start it in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just start with the name. So the way that we pronounce it is SQEPtech. I'll give you a little bit of a background. So SQEP stands for Suitable Qualified Experienced People or Experienced Personnel. It comes from a bit of my background from nuclear constructions, way before I started doing what I'm doing today. It's coming from the desire to put out there a different way of, in effect, managing people and redefining what talent and development looks like. Okay. Taking the training a step further. So the platform that we've built, it is called SQEP. It's a competency management and assurance platform and enables organizations in high-risk industries to, in effect, make sure that once their people have taken the training, they are assisted in their development of the skills and their competencies. So that was the idea behind the company. It was one of those things that I thought, okay, if I can be one day at a point where I can do something that I really want and I can start my own business, I would want to design a system that does that. In the process of designing it, we had the SQEPing terminology in our mind. Is a nuclear word originating from that particular world. And we got so engrossed into defining the application and the functionality and what we needed to do and all the rest of it that we kind of got stuck. So the name of the application was always going to be SQEP related. And then we got so fond of the SQEP terminology that we ended up naming the company Tech because we always were innovation first, very, very keen on, making sure that what we deliver is top notch in terms of software development. So it kind of went, right, it's going to have to be the tech attached to the SQEP terminology. And then with the company, we've kind of adopted the SQEP terminology as our values, as well. So we did start from a product and defining what we want to do and defining how we want the approach of development to promote within the organizations that we're working with. But now we do work by those values as well. We do put the right people with the most suitable skills in the right roles.
Is there a particular problem then in industry that the technology is actually looking to solve?
Yes, very much so. So we are hearing a lot, and even from my life as an employee, the organizations are looking to bring training in. So the L&D departments are on the ball. They understand the learning need. They understand what they need to bring into the organization. And learning management systems is probably one of the first problems the organizations need to fix, which is brilliant. But what we are trying to achieve is to take that training further. Mm-hmm. So take, for example, high-risk industry.
Like nuclear, like you've just...
Like nuclear, yeah. So nuclear or constructions or blue light sector. If you've just done the training and nothing else, can you, as an organisation, guarantee that a person who is just trained can apply that training to the best of their knowledge, one, to the best of their abilities, two, and in circumstances or in sectors like constructions, is that person going to come back alive from climbing up a very tall ladder, trying to put some bricks at the second floor or the third floor? Mm. And with the training and the learning and development and identifying of the skills, you can't have that assurance that those individuals are the most suitably qualified and experienced. And the experience is the one aspect that we enable through our platform to record, approve, document, and assess. That is in effect what we are solving. We are solving the question of competency, and sometimes the word competency is being negatively branded and all the rest of it.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, exactly. But if you look at the definition of the competency, where you don't know what you don't know, and that's probably the easiest way to describe it. Once you first finish the learning, your level of competency is unconscious. So you don't really know what you don't know. The gap between what you've learned and actual application in various scenarios of that particular learned skill may be different. Right. So as you apply that skill in various environments with supervision, with mentors, your level of development and your level of skill is increasing, and that starts to define the competency. You then move into, conscious incompetence, if you like. So I know that I haven't got that gap, but I've built my experience to such a level that I now understand my shortcomings, and I can see where I'm closing the gap. And ultimately, you need to have a mechanism to monitor all the level of competency until it comes a second nature. Yeah. And that is when you know that you send a person into a burning fire, they know what they're going to do, and they're going to come back alive, not just themselves, but the people they're trying to rescue. Equally in construction or nuclear. So that is the problem that we solve. We are taking the learning, we're taking the skill achieved through the learning, and providing a platform where people can evidence how they are moving through their level of competency. And we can, we not only that we can evidence the level of competency as it's increased, but also the competencies has a depreciation curve as well.
What do you mean by that? Can you just paint a little bit more picture on that?
Let's just take a simple example. I'm a skier. Mm-hmm. I love skiing. I've skied since I was 3 years old. I was on the mountain every single day in sunshine, in fog, in snow, fresh snow, prepared slopes, and all the rest of it. And my proficiency level has increased. So I've moved from a blue slope to a green to a red, all the way to a black slope. So I was very confident, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. The muscle memory was there for me to adapt my skill set to some respect unconsciously at the level of the slope category that I was going down into. Yeah. I have now not skied for 5 years. So I haven't applied that competency continuously for 5 years. Will I be able to go on a black slope straight away? Probably, if I've got a death wish. But you know what I mean? You would start again. My competency is depreciated over the 5 years that I haven't applied it.
Yeah.
So take that concept into all the other scenarios and all the other industries. You could be, you can become very, very proficient in the sector and in the industry that you work on a day-to-day basis. But once you stop, your skill is never going to leave you. The skill of learning how to ski is never going to go away, is never going to completely disappear. I will always know how to ski, and I will always have the basics of movement and how to turn and all the rest of it. But will I have the proficiency? Will I have the competency required to go on a black slope without breaking my neck? That is where the depreciation comes into place.
I understand. So it sounds as though there's two things coming into play here. One is that just learning is never enough, because we will fall over and we will forget everything we've learned until we actually put it into practice. So you're kind of capturing and enabling organizations and individuals within high risk industries to really kind of like gel those two things in together. So they're actually demonstrating a competence beyond the training. Organizations will also get ROI from that, because they'll actually know that the money that they're putting into their training is actually going to be worthwhile, and there's some value in this going forward. But of course, it sounds also like, I think the example you've given is brilliant, because it just shows that there is this curve, there is this kind of momentum that you have to keep going and keep demonstrating those skills, otherwise they do get forgotten. I like that.
Absolutely.
And if organizations didn't do that, then Bobbi, what are the risks for them? What's the ultimate kind of payback, I suppose, if they're not necessarily bringing all of these key factors together?
It's a very interesting question, and it's something that you can actually see all the time, ongoing. So just closing the gap on training. You can train an individual as many times as you want to train. Sadly, there are situations where just training isn't enough, and the most tragic output of that is death. There is no kind of question about that, especially in the high risk industries. And not everybody's going to die if they don't have competent people, but there is a cost related to that, in that you keep going and hiring experts. So somebody else has trained those people, somebody else has acquired, has invested in development of competencies in other people. But what you end up with, it could be a high turnover or indeed high cost. It would cost a lot more to bring someone in already trained rather than take your workforce through those stepping stones and in effect find out exactly where those people need to be. And I'll be honest, one of the things which I think that probably organizations are, or some of them are missing the trick, is part of the performance reviews. We are looking at, have you achieved company goals and have you completed your training? But company goals and the training, that gap is more often than not bridged by the level of competency and enabling those people to develop in their roles on a day-to-day basis. So you may put the wrong people, on a performance review because you haven't enabled them, to develop the competencies on the job in various circumstances. So you can lose people. People feel that you're throwing all of these training at me, but actually you are not allowing me to apply what I have learned into a certain environment. Therefore, I'm going to go somewhere else. So you've got a high turnover of staff. You've got people who appear that are not the right people for the job because they don't have the backup in between the pieces of training to allow them to demonstrate and build their confidence ultimately, as well as the competence in applying the job. So it is putting the wrong people in the succession planning, high turnover, people are not happy, will leave, overhiring, or even lack of transferable capabilities, which, competencies are kind of transferable skills. Not knowing them, you will be missing the trick.
Yeah, yeah. It is a transferable skill, but actually some employers can be quite worried about that as well, because they kind of say, we're putting in the investment, we're putting in all the tools and technologies in order to help to retain these people. And ultimately, they could potentially walk with their feet. How do we kind of get companies to kind of say, well, actually, that's just the way it is. And actually, what you're actually doing in terms of value for your businesses, actually, in terms of the people that are here and now, absolutely is number one. And actually, what you need to do is think about other things as well to help retain people.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. People will continue to stay with your organization when they feel invested in. Throwing an awful lot of training doesn't necessarily mean the organization is invested in. Sometimes it can just be seen as, it's your job to throw the training at me. An individual will value a lot more time spent to make sure that once they've learned something, it is applied in the right way. That is when you gain the trust that the company really, really cares about you as an individual, as opposed to caring just about their bottom line. You can't help that. All the organizations will be looking at the bottom line. But transforming an employee from just an employee to a loyal employee, that is when investing in their development is going to keep them for a little bit longer. No one, is probably in this day and age, people stay with you within an organization maybe 4 or 5 years, and after that they will be leaving. But for that time that an individual stays with you, they will feel invested if you invest in them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just a piece of training doesn't necessarily cut it.
Yeah, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with you there. And actually, you shouldn't be saying just because someone's going to potentially walk away and that you've invested in them, shouldn't stop you doing that very investment, because while they are with you, they are your asset, they are talent, and you want to be able to make sure that they're actually delivering and encouraging and actually and are productive within your work environment. And you need to be able to kind of recognize that actually, ultimately, people walk away, but new people come in, and it's going to be a revolving door. It just happens.
It just happens. But if you've got the culture where people are being looked after, and they know they are looked after, and they know that you invest in them, and there is a two-way street in that organization, people that leave because they need a change and because they need to move up, from their own personal development, they need to experience something else. But when they do, the handover between the outgoing and incoming people, it's a nice seamless one, because the experience is a lot better from the incoming people as well as the outgoing people. And I always said, leave the door open every time that you move on. Sometimes you can leave the door open, doesn't matter the circumstances that you are leaving out of. But if you've got a caring environment around you, when you move on, it's a completely different, you take with you so much more than in the opposite scenario.
Yeah. I like that. I think that is just one of those, it is one of those things, isn't it? It sounds, training is ultimately very much underpinning employee engagement and retention. And that's the way that we will need, as HR professionals, we need to see it. And I think it's really good in terms of, the picture that you're painting through the technology that you deliver. What advice would you give to HR directors or business owners who are looking to, to really kind of focus in on their compliance-based training and to improve their workforce kind of, competency strategy? What advice can you give? What have you seen out there when you've been talking to other businesses?
It's a very good question. It varies, and it varies by industry. If you're looking at the high risk industries, I would say that they are already aware that once you've delivered a piece of training, you've got to further that and to demonstrate the capabilities and make sure that those capabilities are staying at a high level. However, there are challenges, even those in those sectors. There are guidances for all of the high risk sectors. the government is always very helpful and is putting out guidances and training suggestions and all the rest of it. And those are great because they do give organizations the direction that they need to go into. The challenge is that those are just that, our guidances, and not here it is, here's a prescriptive thing, take it, implement it, and job done. So the challenges in these organizations is taking that guidance, which you have to follow in those particular industries, and translating those in what happens in my organization. That is where the challenge is. And this is where starting with the training is brilliant, because the guidance, it tells you what the training you need to deliver, which is brilliant. But the next step on from that is the definition of the roles. What are the functions within the organizations? What are the roles which align to those functions? What are the requirements for those people in those roles to deliver for the organization? And ultimately, what are the skills that are coming out of the function, the role, why am I here, and what am I supposed to be delivering? 9 times out of 10, you see the learning is defined, the organization structure is defined, but the hardest part to define is the function, the roles, and the bit in between. We now have the skills and the skills cloud, which are great, are coming to the latter part of the project, of the process. So if you've got the training and if you've got the skill, but the steps in between, the functions, the roles, why they're there, what they're supposed to be, if that piece in the middle is missing, is as if you've got a sandwich without a filling. You've got 2 pieces of bread and nothing in between.
Yeah.
So this is where we spend a lot of time with the organizations understanding what it is that they need. And in some areas, like I said, that you do have some of these this bit in the middle, because the national guidelines are there, so they do help towards that. But there's always a tailoring to my own organisation, even though I've got other organisations in my sector. What is best practice for me might not be best practice for the company next door. So this is where we work with organisations to understand how does that guideline fit within your sector and within your company specifically.
And that's a really useful point that you've just made, because ultimately, yes, a lot of regulated businesses have frameworks and they have sort of like guidelines, etc. But ultimately, there are ways of adapting within those guidelines that are actually bespoke to that business. So no one regulated business is going to be as the same as any other. There'll be probably 80% that may be the same, but actually there will be some nuances that your technology can actually help to flesh out and to help manage.
That's correct. The 80-20 rule is something that you would want to aim for. Aiming for perfection means that you're not going to implement a system, one, and secondly, you're never going to get to a point where it's perfect. Very different levels of perfect. So what we do try to do with the organisations that we are working, we start from the simple point. Bringing training into the organization and categorizing the training is a simpler way to bring in the starting of a competency framework or capability framework, call it whatever you like. Because typically, and the reason why is easier is most of the training the organizations are using things like LinkedIn or other content providers, they already curate their training into areas, if you like, or topics or subjects. You would have the starting point of a framework just by bringing in training within the organization. The bigger part is then the role definition. So what are the roles? And I'm talking about roles. I'm not talking about job titles because there's a massive difference between a job title and a role. So the roles within the organizations, what do you need to have in place in finance, in accounting, in operational staff? What kind of operational staff? All the way down to the team. So looking at the structure of the organization and the functions within the organization, what are the roles that are required in each one of those functions, and within those roles, what are their roles and capabilities? So this is what we do. We start from the guidelines. We've got the basic of, in your industry, this is what you've got available, but then it's down to rolling your sleeves up and really looking at your own organization and tailoring and adding and changing and fitting the standards into what you need to achieve as an organization. And it is exciting stuff. You get so deeply involved into the business, and you understand all the pains and but I think the fact that we work with more than the one organization, you take learning from one to another, and it's like, I've learned that piece there, I'd never even thought about it, I'm just going to bring that across. How does it fit? How does it not fit? So it is quite an interesting world to be in, if you like.
Absolutely, and an important world as well.
It is. Yeah.
Bobbi, let's move things on. I mean, you and I, we met a few weeks ago, and I think it would be really remiss of me not to talk about your story, because that was one of the things that really attracted me to you, and I'm really excited that you're here on the podcast. So tell us a little bit about your background. Obviously, you've built up a very successful company in an industry which is traditionally quite male dominated. The tech business has got a sort of reputation of being quite sort of male orientated. What challenges have you faced as a female leader? And just give us more of a story about yourself, because I want my listeners to really to hear it as well.
So one of my character traits is that I am stubborn. I don't necessarily take no for an answer, even if I do appear I have accepted a no. My mind is always trying to break that no away and transform it from a no into a yes.
So that means you're tenacious.
Yes.
Not stubborn, tenacious.
I like that better than stubborn. I am going to adopt that. So why is that coming from? Well, I'm Romanian by birth, and I have grown up in communism. The first 14, 15 years of my life, I've grown up in communism, with its challenges and lack of freedom and all the rest of it. Obviously, there's gruesome stories that we can talk about, but let's just talk about the ones which I like to talk about best, and that is my mum and dad.
Yeah.
Why I am the way I am is probably down to how I've been brought up. So I'm a single child, and that meant that all the effort that mum and dad have put into anything is literally just been concentrated on myself. But I've also been challenged as a child in the nicest possible way. So we didn't have television when I was little. We had a couple of hours in the morning and we had a couple of hours in the night, and absolutely nothing in between. So all we had books. And Dad has always been an avid reader. And we had books which we were allowed to have, and we had books which weren't allowed to have. Some of them were absolutely not. They were passed from generation to generation, and they may not have been necessarily legal on the communism. So we put it that way. And my dad always, he was giving me books in relation to the age that I was at the time. And then we were discussing them. So he's always tried to get me to think outside of what I've learned, or interpret what I have learned into from the particular books. We've also come from, so under communism, religion wasn't something that was easily accepted, but my family religion is quite mixed. So my mum's parents were Adventists, my dad's parents were Russian Orthodox. That's the kind of the main religion in Romania. But Dad is an atheist. I remember as a child, conversations between my dad and my mum's parents about their beliefs in the Bible and why they were. And there were so many debates in the family that I was part of that I think that kind of developed the interest in knowing more, the interest in reading, the interest in debating, various scenarios around. So, and it's built confidence. It's built confidence to voice your own opinions as well. So I guess that's where it's come from.
Yeah.
And then when I moved over to the UK in my early 20s, I just had to learn another lifestyle all over again. So, we went through communism, came out of communism. It was a bit of a democracy, but we didn't really know whether we're coming or going in Romania at that time. And all of a sudden, I've come to the UK, of which I knew nothing about. The only thing that I've known about UK was what I read in the British classics. And that was about it. The funny thing was that I couldn't understand accents, and even now I don't understand Glaswegian.
Who does? Sorry, Glaswegian, sorry.
The very broad accent, I know, the very broad accent I'm struggling with. But when I first came, it was even more so. So it kind of built the resilience. I was newly married at the time, and it got to a point where there was all this new society that I wasn't used to. It's completely different, society structure, different lifestyle, completely different interaction with people. Very, very different to what I knew from Romania. So it was one of those points. You either embrace it or you pack up and go home.
Yeah.
And I've chosen to embrace it. Yeah. And it hasn't been easy. It's been ups and downs. I think roll a few years on, went through a divorce, single mum for a period of time, and then having met my current fiance, I should say, we've just got engaged Christmas.
Congratulations!
After being 17 years together. So yeah, it's I guess it's the background and that upbringing. It's kind of giving me the basis, but going off and doing what I'm doing with SQEPtech, I don't know whether that was a rational decision. Other than if I could create a product like this, I would create a product like this. I don't think I have processed what the implications would be. Would I do it again, knowing all I know now? Probably I would. Would I do it in the same way? Possibly not. Would I have as much fun doing it differently? Possibly not. It does require a hell of a lot of resilience, and I think, like you say, it is a world which is male dominated. You're quite right. I guess my luck is that I've got a very strong male influence, one in my dad and two in my fiance, because roll back 10 years ago, maybe longer than that actually, would I have had the guts of starting this? No, I would not have. I had to go through working in a particular company. I had to go through a really rough time. I think I told you about this. Yes. when we met, and that really rough time, it helped me build more resilience. And Phil was there with me throughout that time, and he was the rock that in effect helped me overcome the certain situation. So what happened in all of that not very nice period of time is that I've built the new me, I guess you could call it. The person that will absolutely not take no for an answer, the person that knows that I've been in a really, really dark place and I've come back out of it. Going through divorce, that wasn't a pretty time, and then going through the work scenario and everything else that came with that wasn't, it could either make you or break you, and I've chosen the make you path. I guess that is why I have had the strength to kind of go and say, no, I've managed to go through that. I came out the other side. I can go further than that, and I can be me.
Yeah, I really like that, because okay, you've mentioned resilience and tenaciousness like a few times, but I hear other things. I hear there's almost like a 3 C's coming into my head. You're incredibly courageous. I mean, you up sticks and you moved across, from Romania to the UK. You were on your own. There's the curiosity, around the dinner table, talking politics and religion with your family. And then there's communism, which kind of like almost galvanized, and was almost like the springboard into you wanting to doing different things. And and the fact that you're able to use all of those things to help shape you and to create a successful business that you are today within such a male dominated environment. I think fair play. You've done fantastic. It's always wonderful to hear women who have kind of like emerged from that and actually proved themselves really, really focused. How do you think your leadership style then, all the things that we've talked about just now, how do you think your leadership style actually shapes how SQEPtech operates today?
So we do have a management layer, if you like, but it's there more to maintain my insanity.
Your insanity or your sanity? What bit of both?
Insanity, one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, one or the other. We are about 30 people in the business right now. So for a long time there was just it was just all of us. The way I see SQEPtech is I work for 30 people. Fundamentally, I need to make sure that when I have had the conversation with them and I've asked them whether they would want to join me in SQEPtech, I've made a commitment to keep them safe from a job perspective, and to look after their own well-being. So saying that, to have a direct contact with 30 people is a lot. So that's the only reason why we had to introduce a management layer, so that I can keep my sanity or insanity going. But other than that, my leadership style is me. There are no top-down directives. My door is always open. We do not have. I'll give you an example. We don't have the traditional PDR. We don't have your performance reviews or anything like that. But what we do have, we have regular check-ins. We have, reviews of how are you doing the work? How can you improve the work? Where do you see gaps? Where do you need support? So the way that our engagement is a regular engagement with each other throughout the working week, and I learn from them. They learn from each other, and ultimately the way that my leadership style, I suppose, is I am one of the team. if I don't learn and develop myself all the time, then they won't be able to do that either. So I guess you can define it as communication is the key, and there is no finger pointing in this organization. I've always hated that. Trying to find someone to blame, it's something that I've always detested. And if you go back to communists, that's always has been the case. Someone has had to take the blame for something. Well, how about whoever made a mistake learns from that mistake and move forward without a punishment in tow? It's bad enough for that person to realize that they've made a mistake. Why would you overlay that with even more punishment on that? And as long as that individual is willing to learn, which I find the majority of people are willing to learn, then why would you want a formal PDR review to use as a stick when you can have an informal, permanent guidance and mutual learning and adapting the styles of getting from that person the best that they can offer you, and you can become the best person that they need to support them. So I'm a very strong believer in competency, obviously, but in human relations, in the people out there with the people down here, they don't tally in my world. We all work for the same goal, and that is to be able to pay our bills.
Absolutely.
To be able to have a happy family, to be able to, put the laptop down and have a nice evening without being stressed and all the rest of it. Obviously, you do have times when, the proverbial hits the fan. And there's tensions and all the rest of it in a team. You cannot not have that. It's not always pink and rosy and fluffy. But if you've got the culture of open communication and supportive and constant learning and adapting, then it's a different way that you manage a crisis versus when you get the stick out and you be very, very formal. So I don't know whether that answers your question.
It does. And what I'm getting from it is that you obviously allow your team members to make mistakes, because I'm very much like you. We learn best when we've fallen over, when we've made mistakes, and we can actually rectify and understand that mistake and actually make sure that doesn't happen again. But what I also hear from your answer is that you're actually providing a context where people feel safe to make those mistakes, and that there isn't blame, and that there isn't like finger pointing or punitive measures, because we all make mistakes, and actually just recognizing that we learn best when we do them is the best way forward.
It is. And to some instances, by trying to help through open communication, you may find that you thought you might be an absolute brilliant consultant. But then when you're actually in the role of consultant and you understand the breadth of what you would need to do or be as a consultant, you actually can get to the point to say, well, that's not for me. So if we don't find those areas, if we don't provide the environment for an individual to try different approaches, then you can in effect close that door, and you could always leave someone, oh, well, what if I could do that? Well, try it. Let's just try it. It's in a controlled environment. We've had people that came in to do one specific role, and now they're doing something completely different. And they would never go back and do what they came in to do in the first place. Because being here, they've actually realized, you know what, I hated that and I don't want to do it. But I found that I really like doing this thing, and this is what my future is going to be. And that's absolutely fine. And that's the beauty of, I mentioned earlier that when we talk about with our clients, we talk about roles rather than job titles. That's what we enable as SQEPtech. It's that we have roles, and in one project you might be a consultant, and another project you might be, I don't know, a data manager, or you might be a project manager, or you might be a business analyst. So it does allow for for an individual to try multiple avenues. And they can find their niche. You may have expertise across 2-3 roles, but you are an expert in one, and that it's the one that you want to go further with and develop in that career.
And it's good to hear, because obviously your business is all about competencies and actually giving people exposure and capturing the experience in order to develop those competencies. So actually you're kind of living and breathing what you offer to your clients.
We do, and that's how we engage with the clients as well. So I mentioned earlier that we've taken the SQEP terminology as values within SQEPtech, and that's exactly how we work. One client doesn't necessarily work with one person. They work with a number of people, because whilst we're all generalists and we understand and we know the systems that we're working with across all the modules, we all have our specialism. So you might, one client would work with 2 or 3 people because they would need the most experienced person in a specific area to work with them. That's why we've embraced those values internally. We try to capitalize on the skills that people feel they want to develop in, they feel comfortable with, they've got an interest in going further, but also, and again, I think this is going back to my communist background. So in communism, in our school, we had to learn every single subject throughout the entire school, all up until you left high school. And I think that's probably one of the good things of communists, because it provides you with knowledge across all the subjects, sufficient so you can understand what you're talking about, and the areas that you want to specialize in. That's where you go deep dive and understand all the ins and outs. So that's the reason why internally my ask from everyone is understand everything that we do, so that you can hold a conversation and you can competently respond to those questions, but then have your area, which is your specialism, where you are the expert in that area. The people will tap into your expert knowledge to move them out of the general conversation and into the specialism.
Thank you, Bobbi. I could talk to you about this stuff all day, because actually I do have a real interest in training and competency development and the impact of that. But before we go, I want to ask you just going back to, your own role and how you made this breakout from a very male dominated environment. What advice would you give to other aspiring women who are also in, very much in male dominated environments? What can they learn from you in terms of making the move or helping to shape their role within that industry?
Find allies. Those allies can be female, can be male, and mentors. I can't underline, with really, really thick markers how important it is to have a mentor. And if it's a female mentor, is even better, because as a woman you do have to navigate quite a lot of male traits, call them. Some of them are deliberate, some of them they're not even deliberate, they're just there, but having someone who is a female to guide you in that labyrinth of politics, because ultimately that's what it is really, really important. And I did had, from my perspective, I had some examples when I worked at some of the other companies with strong allies, with a network. That is what I would suggest. And believe in yourself. It's so easy to believe what others are telling you, and a lot of people are taking at face value, comments on social media, or an off the cuff remark or stuff like that. Concentrate on what you do. There are a lot of people around that would come with the negatives, there are a lot of people that would say, well, but what if? Just ignore that. You know who you are as an individual. Trust yourself. Find the allies and close your eyes to the what ifs and the negative people around you. And just go forward and strive and take the good, ignore the bad, and carry on going.
That is perfect advice. So essentially, get some allies and basically believe in yourself. Make sure that you don't get caught out but also don't just stay in your lane. Definitely know what you're good at, but actually kind of test and kind of jostle for other positions in terms of developing your own competencies. I love that, Bobbi. Thank you.
Definitely. Actually, there is another one. A lot of people are thinking that to get to be an entrepreneur or to get to be extremely good at what you were doing means you have to go up the career ladder. And you have to really fight to be head of this or head of that or manager of this or director. That might be true for some people. I've never been a manager. I've never had a C role in any of the organizations I've been. In one company that I worked, I was data development manager, and I had 3 people that were working with me. That is as far as my management experience has gone. And that, did that prevent me from believing that I can do what I'm doing? No. As long as you open to learn, there is so much material out there that you can read, and it's just trial and error. You're gonna get it wrong. You're gonna. There's absolutely impossible. I've made mistakes. Christ, so many things that you kind of thinking back on. I said, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that.
We've all been there.
It's a little bit like when you're little and you're falling off the bike and your parents are brushing your knees. I say, stop crying, just get on a bike, crack on.
Get back on,
It's a little bit like that, obviously a lot harder, but if you have that attitude of, I've made a mistake, I've learned from it, take the good, leave the bad and move on. And this is where the mentors matter, because they will be the ones that will be able to help you move on and use the experience to better yourself as opposed to knock yourself down, because that's so easy to do.
Brilliant. So what's next for you and the company? Have you got any exciting projects on the horizon?
We do. So we've invested a lot in the development of SQEP over the last number of years. This year is quite exciting because we have decided we're going to concentrate all our effort on the blue light sector. There is some really interesting stuff that we're doing with that. We've got, the national guidelines that are being published, and we're transforming that into a competency cloud. We're capitalizing on all the AI type of thing, but the way that we are doing it is not the automation of the assessment. It's to enable organizations to close the gap, do the sandwich filling a little bit easier, taking into account the capabilities that we can put in place with the AI. So there's a lot of investment that we're putting into that this year. And for the first, I think this is the second year where we're actually on the road as an organisation. So we're going to a few shows, one in Birmingham, one in London, one in Dublin, to showcase what we do from the competency perspective. Hopefully a few more podcasts. I've spoken to a group of entrepreneurs a couple of weeks ago, literally just to kind of help out as much as I can. So yeah, we're already starting to notice that we are being noticed. And I've always had a scare of podcasting or doing videos, or I feel very, very self-conscious about it. So I started to conquer that. So I'm pushing myself.
Good for you.
A little bit more.
And you're a natural.
Coming out of that, yeah. Well, there's a lot of coffee involved.
Bless you, you're doing great.
Yeah, this year is about pushing the name out a lot more, going out to the shows. There is the development of the platform that is really exciting to us as well.
Yeah. So some real brand awareness work is happening really on the horizon for you. Yeah, it is. So hopefully it's going to be a good year. The guys are brilliant. They we've got some really great projects. We've got some wonderful partnerships that we've had from the beginning of SQEPtech, but also new partnerships that we are in the process of signing. So there's a lot of stuff coming. Yeah. And of course, I wish you ever such good fortune with the business, and I hope it goes ever so well.
You.
Now, if any of the listeners wanted to make contact with yourself or with SQEPtech and find out more about the business or to talk about their needs, how can they get in touch with you?
So LinkedIn is brilliant. Connect with me on LinkedIn. All my contact details are they're available. We also have the website, so is www.SQEPtech.com, and we have the company contact emails, contact@SQEPtech.com as well. But I would say LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. We're all there, and more than happy to help on more ways than one.
Brilliant. Bobbi, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. It's been great to get to know you, get to know more about your business and what your technology and your platform actually can help businesses actually achieve. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for inviting me, and
my pleasure.
It's just been a pleasure.
Thank you. So, wow, I hope you found this conversation with Bobbie King as insightful and as inspiring as I did. We managed to unpack so much, from the importance of competency management to the role of AI in training, and of course, what it takes to succeed as a woman in a male-dominated industry. Bobbie's story is proof that resilience, self-belief, and the right support system can break down even the toughest barriers. If you haven't already, check out the SQEP website and the incredible work Bobbi and her team are doing. Are we doing enough to move beyond compliance and truly develop talent? Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on LinkedIn, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. So until next time, keep challenging the status quo, supporting each other, and making workplaces better, one conversation at a time. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back soon with some more HR hacks, and together, let's polish some more HR halos. See ya.